Hi everybody, it's Miss Cole and I want to talk today about writing. Just a little bit of writing. Specifically, why and how to answer questions using complete sentences. The skill of answering a question with a complete sentence is one that's used in a lot of academic courses, not just English. You'll see it on tests in science, history, art appreciation, psychology, and more. Even some math classes. To a lot of students, that seems like unnecessary work. Why not just get right to the point and include only what's directly asked for? But using complete sentences helps to contextualize the answer. It also encourages students to provide additional detail, which can result in a stronger response. Perhaps most importantly, it reinforces what complete sentences sound like. As the rhythm of standard syntax becomes more familiar, it becomes easier for you to use complete sentences in other situations, which is incredibly helpful in academic writing. When I'm grading tests, I typically look from one answer to the next. If the answer is only a word or a phrase, I have no idea what the student is trying to communicate, and I have to review the question to determine how effectively the response answers it. This only takes a few seconds, but on a 20-question quiz, that's a few minutes. And with a class of 30 students, that easily becomes an extra hour or more beyond the time it already takes to grade that quiz. And it's common for teachers to have 6 classes per day. Using complete sentences also highlights weak responses. For a question like, what does Brutus think of Caesar? The answer, honorable or tyrant, would probably not earn a lot of credit. Even if you use both words, that reply doesn't show the relationship between them. But if you're going to write out, he thinks he's honorable but could be a tyrant, which clarifies what you mean, it's not that much more work to write, Brutus thinks Caesar is honorable, but too much power will make him become a tyrant. It shouldn't be controversial to point out the best way to improve a skill is to practice that skill. When students practice answering questions with words or phrases, they lose that opportunity to improve their skill in writing clearly. So, how should you go about this? The most basic strategy for answering with a complete sentence is to remember that in English, questions are basically statements that are backward, with a question word like who or what dropped in front. So you remove the question word, rearrange the phrases, and then add your response. Let's look at a few examples. Who is Brutus's wife? First, remove the question word who. Next, rearrange the phrases. Brutus's wife is. Finally, add your response. Portia. So the sentence is, Brutus's wife is Portia. Another question. What should Caesar have done differently? In this example, and others like it, there's more than one verb. This is because a question often uses a verb phrase with a subject after the first helping verb in the phrase. I'll link my lesson video on helping verbs and phrases in the description if you'd like to review or learn more. So again, first, remove the question word what. Next, rearrange the phrases so the subject is in front of the verb phrase. Caesar should have done differently. Finally, add your response. A lot of things. So the sentence is, Caesar should have done differently a lot of things. Wait, that's not right. Caesar should have done a lot of things differently. There you go. So the process works, but you do have to pay attention to that rearranging, especially with longer questions. I'll also point out that this is probably not a great answer if that's a question on a test. A lot of things is vague and doesn't really show any understanding of the character or the situation. Like I tell my students, be specific, but at least it's a complete sentence. As you progress as a writer and you become more confident in your own ability to construct complete sentences, it'll be less important to use this strategy. You can respond in a way that's clear, thorough, and understandable, even without rephrasing the question. So let's look at these examples again. Who is Brutus's wife? Portia and Brutus are married. What should Caesar have done differently? In Shakespeare's play, Caesar died because his inflated sense of self-importance led him to be overconfident. He dismissed the concerns of Calpurnia and the priests, walked away from Artemidorus, and even mocked the soothsayer. If he had listened to these points and thought carefully about them, he might have noticed that multiple sources were giving him the same advice and changed his actions as a result. I want to point out 2 final issues to keep in mind that are shown in this last example. First of all, notice that in these examples, I use the same verb tense that's used in the question. The first one uses present tense, which is typical when we're discussing literature. Even though we read it in the past, if we go back to that part of the story, Portia and Brutus are still married at that point. And they always will be whenever we look at that part of the story. However, The second question uses past tense, should have done rather than should do, so my response also uses past tense. Second, since that response is much longer, I divided it up into several sentences. When you're told to respond using complete sentences, that may mean that you need more than one. A run-on is not a complete sentence, any more than a fragment is. You might be familiar with the saying, practice makes perfect. The thing is, that's not actually true. As my band teacher would often remind us, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. What you practice is what you're going to remember. So practice using good writing strategies. Practice doing your best. Practice being kind to others. And always practice being the best version of yourself that you can be. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. You know I'm a sucker for a good comment. Bye for now.